Hey guys, thank you for joining. I am waiting for Bridget. She's going to go live with me. I'm feeling a little bit emotional today, so she's coming on to really help me share my thoughts on the situation with Madalyn Coulter. I can't say her name very well, but Madalyn. So I'm just waiting for Bridget to get on, and then we'll talk about the situation that I've been sharing all day with you guys. Hope you guys are having a good day. I have been having a little bit of an emotional day as I think about, oh, is there no sound? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me now? Let me know if you guys can hear me. I almost never go live. Okay, loud and clear. Thank you. So I'm joining to talk about Madalyn, one of our veteran sisters who has been taken from us way too soon by a fellow veteran. And I'm waiting for Bridget to come on and join me. I don't know how. Let's see. Okay, just wait for request to join. So she can help me with getting my thoughts out and not saying anything I regret, because this has been a tough day. But I shared her picture. Here she is. This is Madalyn. Absolutely gorgeous. She is a mother. She was a mother and an Army veteran, and she deserves to be honored for her sacrifices to this country and for the amazing human that she was. So I'm just waiting for Bridget to come online, and then we'll talk about Madalyn's story, as well as kind of how I feel like this is really affecting the veteran community. I'm not here to attack anyone. I'm not here to attack the veteran community. I absolutely love our community. So I just want to share my thoughts. And hopefully bring a unifying voice. Let's see. Just waiting for Bridget to join. And I've also invited. Let's see. I hope I can have more than, I think we can have several people on at once, right? Hey, Jess. Just waiting on Bridget to join also. You can have 3 people.
All right. Okay, good deal.
Yeah. Can we have 3 people on, or?
Yeah, I think so. If not, I don't mind getting off, but yeah.
No. I'm so excited to do this.
I'm so angry.
I know, it's been a really, really, really tough day. I've been very emotional all day. It's weird because it just really feels personal, doesn't it? Like, it kind of feels like if this was me or you, like, would they not even acknowledge us because they want to protect the network? I'm not sure.
I have so many thoughts, and I've tried to like see it from another perspective, and just the silence is really what baffles me. It actually speaks volumes. It's almost like, say, for example, maybe she wasn't in the best line of work, like if she had an OnlyFans or something like that, she would immediately get dragged and be victim blamed. But I think they're just, well, I just think that because of him taking his life as well, that's where everyone's just like speechless. And I understand that, but y'all, or people just love to drag women in general, especially mothers. And so we're holding our own accountable, and, you know, we do that. And so we just want the same thing from our male friends and reciprocants, and also people from the community. So it's almost like you were saying, if it was you or me, would there be anyone to defend us? Anyone to speak on our behalf?
Yeah, like I shared it. It's got about her story's got about like 10,000 views on TikTok right now, and all the comments are, I haven't heard anything about this. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, this happened on the 12th. So what's today? The 21st. It's almost been 10 days. And why do people not know that she has been murdered? And she was found the same day as him.
Okay.
So
someone did ask, like, out of respect for her family, did they not want that to be released right away? So
they actually did they did an interview with the news, and so I don't think they were trying to not have it released, because I posted that interview on my story, but her family actually conducted an interview. So I was waiting for Brittany to get on. I was going to kind of share the story, but I guess what I could do is I could share the details of the story, and then when she hops on, she has some great perspective that she wants to share, because I have spent the entire day scouring the internet trying to get as much information about her story as I could, because I'm really shocked that the news hasn't jumped all over this and they're not sharing it. And that's what makes me feel like there's got to be some kind of fear to upset a certain community. And so when I look on the news, first of all, when I look on social media and I research his name, it's like all over the place. And it's a bunch of people since the day that he took his life. There's just posts all over the internet saying, you know, 22 a day, and what an amazing person he was, and what a great representation of the veteran community he was. So there's posts by tons of people, and they're all tagging the company that they worked for. But then when I look up her name, not only does she not really have a social media presence, which makes me feel like she may have already been living in fear and she already kind of went into hiding, but there's almost no posts at all about her, like nothing. And so maybe I found 5 news stories, and those news stories, the headlines are things like, there was one, the one that I posted that was probably the best one that I could find. But like one of the news stories, the headline was 9-line employee, just employee, 9-line employee and presidential candidate, or candidate, because I guess he ran for presidency in 2020. So it said 9-line employee and presidential candidate in murder-suicide with a girl. And they just refer to her as a girl. And so it's kind of like they're giving his accolades up front, like, you know, what a great guy he was. And then, you know, she's just a girl. And, you know, I feel like it almost like minimizes what happened to her. And it kind of like puts him like in a light of like, you know, he was, you know, kind of for all these things. And that was hard to see. But anyway, so from the details of the story, because I read through every single article, so her name is Madalyn Coulter. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. She was 28 years old, an Army veteran. She served for 4 years. She's a mom. She worked for that veteran company for about 2 years. His name is Zach Scaff. He's 41 years old. He worked for that veteran company for 7 years. They worked there at the same time between like 2018 and 2020. And he has 2 daughters. And he's also an Army veteran. So they're both Army veterans. They both worked for that company for about 2 years. And then they both left that company.
okay.
When I say that there were signs, I suspect that there were signs that people kind of knew something was off. And then he ended up, I guess, moving here. And it looks like she stayed in Georgia. So on the day, July 12th, he was texting her. There was some communication going back and forth between he and her. The police found that on her personal phone at her home. The communication between the two of them, where he asked her to meet him. So she met him at the DoubleTree at the airport. And that's where he shot her, allegedly. And then he left, and as he was driving to their old workplace, that veteran company, he made that live video, which showed no remorse. It came across very much like a narcissistic video of, you know, just kind of saving his image. Yeah. And then someone made a phone call to the airport police to let them know that there was a dead body in the vicinity. But they didn't say where. So typically, if you see one, you're going to say exactly where you saw it, right? Unless you're the person who did it and just wants to say, hey, go look for a body. And so the police drove around the airport, and it took them a while to finally find her body. They found her at about 5 o'clock that night. He had already taken care of himself prior to them finding her. So they were both found on the same day. This happened on the same day. And the news about her didn't really come out until like 2 days ago. So
Yeah.
for all of this time, everybody's been mourning him and elevating him. You know, like he was this amazing person in the industry or in the veteran community, and you know, kind of painting him as like you know, an image for mental health and 22 a day, right? Like all of that. How did nobody in their, they worked together. How did nobody in their network not know that she had also been found on the same day?
Yeah.
So now here we are 2 days ago. Yes, she was in the veteran community, and you're right. They didn't mention that she was in the veteran community. On the articles, they just call her a girl. He gets, you know, all the accolades, but she gets just a girl. So she served 4 years in the Army. So I'm like, still now, okay, so it's been 2 days and the news is out. Like they've done their investigation. The news is out that this is what happened, and still no mainstream media coverage. Still nobody's sharing her photos. Still nobody's talking about her.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, the only reason why I heard about this situation was so Zach has a service dog, and I think he was displaying some behavior before this, and so people were concerned and, you know, trying to tell him like, hey, like we're here for you, et cetera, et cetera. And he ended up boarding his dog, his service dog, and so that was also a red flag, like weird behavior, you're boarding up your dog, like, you know, he's preparing for something. And then yeah, until recently I was just like, wait, what? I thought, and for some reason I had to fully read the article to understand what had happened. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, he could be all of those great things. That doesn't take away from his service, but you can also still be, you know, behind closed doors, narcissistic, controlling, abusive. And for both of them to leave the workplace around the same time, or at the same time, yeah, that's a red flag right there. And
Yeah.
that age difference, that age gap is also for concern. She's a grown woman, do what you want, but there is a power imbalance. So I want that to be discussed as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just easy nowadays to portray a woman as just a woman to make it less harmful, less hurtful to see a great woman, you know, be slain that way. It's, again, it's like, unless they have dirt on her, they don't want her to look good. They just want the man to look good. And that's not fair at all. It should just be a tragic situation overall while still holding that man accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. So that's what I don't understand. And so the crickets from the male community is just very upsetting. And I'm like, come on, guys, like y'all hold each other accountable to a certain extent. I'm not seeing it now. Why? Like, again, like I get it. He ended up taking his life, but he had no reason to do that to his ex-girlfriend, another woman, another veteran at that, you know?
This is Bridget. So Bridget also reached out and said that, you know, the story has affected her, and so she wanted to come on and kind of talk about her thoughts, especially not being in the veteran community much, and so kind of her perspective as an outsider. But I think you're right, like just not hearing, not seeing, like even today I've been posting all day, and you know, I'm looking to see if anybody's sharing, and I'm not seeing shares from certain people. My concern with that is that the community is intertwined. This community is intertwined, and there is a strong veteran company that has been named, not as at fault at all. Like this has horribly affected them. Like I am absolutely empathetic to them. This has been a terrible, tragic incident for them. But like as of this morning, and they've gone through and it looks like they've started taking some stuff down. As of this morning, all of his stuff was still on their page. And when I looked through the videos, because I didn't know really who he was, because, you know, I just don't follow stuff like that. And so all the videos show him as like this, you know, badass, growling, you know, intimidating person. And like as of today, so it's been almost 10 days, and surely they knew that there was another one of their own who had been also impacted, and it just is like, why didn't that get taken down? And so I'm concerned that the reason that people aren't sharing it is because they don't want to upset that company or the network that is around that company. And it's like, sharing her, like her memory should not be something that people are afraid of, and that you're afraid you're going to get pushed out of the veterinary community because you're sharing the memory of a woman who was a victim of really narcissistic violence. So that's what's hurtful to me, is just that there's no harm in sharing it unless you're really that intimidated by the community pushing you out because he was associated with that company. That's the only thing I can make sense of it. So, but Brittany, you said you're going to help me with not being so upset about it. So you had some thoughts. I would love to hear what you think.
So first, I want to say thanks for posting and even sharing that story, just because so many times, especially like with us doing podcasting and even seeing survivors and victims, females especially, often silence, and things are always swept under the rug. And me, from outside looking in, I'm not a part of the veteran community, but I've been connected to that community. And based off of experience of speaking with survivors and victims within, especially even the military community, what I've noticed, even after you sharing the story that you did today, and even me going and doing a deep dive on it, it's really sad to see that so many people are silent on it. And there's so much fear that if people share a story and talk about it, they're worried about losing the following. And so with the comments with all the powerful messages that you posted, it hit home in multiple different ways, because it's like, at the end of the day, that's a life and it's a human, and you shouldn't be fearful of doing what's right and speaking on it, especially if you're worried about a following or worrying about a network and a social status. Like, really take a step back and look at yourself in the mirror, because it's like, what if that was you?
You're
What
worried about the wrong things. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. You're worried about the wrong things, but even like, that's a daughter. Like, that's someone.
A mother.
World, a mother. Like, there's so many different things. So just looking at it from that perspective as well. But then, like, one thing that I know that I was talking to you about is what I've noticed outside looking in is within the veteran community, and I don't want to bash the veteran community or anything, but from what I've seen outside looking in, is it's always preached family and love and unity, and we're here for one another. But when something tragic happens, it seems like there's silence, or it's not okay to talk about certain things, especially if it's, and I've noticed, like, even vet to vet, there's like that, there's still like an animosity, or things are often swept under the rug, especially with females. So I think that this whole situation, especially with the females, like, the men really have to step up and say, how can we do better? And even share, like, even talking about mental health and addressing it from that angle. And just, there's so much to say on it.
Yeah. And there's like, even when I post about it, it's like I have, like, in the back of my mind that people are going to get defensive, and they're going to think that me speaking out on behalf of this woman is me attacking all men in the veteran community. And that's absolutely not the case. Not only is that not the case, but I'm pleading with them because I know that the majority actually do care, and the majority do hurt when they see this happen within our community. But, like, why are they not speaking up? Why are they not sharing her photo just like, all of us are? And that's what's hurtful to me, is that, when people found out about his passing, everybody was quick to share and to talk about 22 a day and mental health. But then when we find out that there's a woman impacted, like it's crickets. And I can't imagine as her mom and her sisters, you know, looking for people to say all the amazing things, those amazing things about her, and not finding anything. Like that would crush me. And I noticed that they saw the post that I put on TikTok today, and they followed me. And so they're looking for someone to speak out on her behalf. And that's what hurts me, is like, it's not us against them. And it, you know, me talking about, you know, I think I posted today that I sent a message to this veteran company, and I said, this is an opportunity for us to show that vulnerability is courage, and vulnerability is badass, you know. And you don't have to always display toxic masculinity as what the veteran community represents, because badass doesn't necessarily mean that. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for the alpha male. I'm all for alpha. But there's some who take it too far. And I feel like in this situation, from what I looked at, the way I looked at it, it looks like this is one of those people who took it too far, where he was, you know, kind of paraded around as this badass, tactical, you know, intimidating man. And he was able to then use that clout to intimidate this girl who is half his age, right? And then, you know, after he takes her life, his post has no remorse, and all his videos stay up. And it's like, this is an opportunity for us to say, let's elevate some of the voices of those who are more vulnerable, or those who are not necessarily so alpha that it becomes dangerous.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that's what I was trying to convey, is like, it's not us against them. It's not, I'm not pointing out any specific, but what I will say is that because the veteran community does promote this, you know, badass persona so much, that it is possibly elevating some of the wrong people. And it's giving some narcissists a platform to prey. And I think that's kind of what the case is here from what I'm seeing. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree, especially because and I know even when I was talking with you offline, is so many turn a blind eye to it. And even like looking at it from a female perspective, and just based on like opinion and experience of what I've learned in different situations, and even with females, is oftentimes there's different tactics that are used, and there's a lot of fear. So then you look at it from that perspective too, and even helping, like, when the toxic masculinity is pushed, that's elevated, but then you have other veterans who are talking about mental health and vulnerability, but those guys are looked at, oh, you're too beta, or you're excuse my French for people who are like, don't cuss, but they're looked at bitches, or like, oh, like you just need to grow up, or oh, you need to grow some balls, like be a man. And it's like, no, like look at it from, it's okay to talk about it, and use this opportunity to say, how can I create change within myself and make an impact in my own community, and push that out further? Because at the end of the day, it starts with all of us, and it starts with one person. And even if it's not on social media, having this conversation, even talking amongst one another. And I know, like, I talked to you about even like the brotherhood and sisterhood, and really being there for one another, and especially in the time of need, or if you are suffering with mental health, and not okaying the narcissistic tendencies, and really addressing the deeper issues.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a difference between actually being a strong man in your masculinity and putting up a front for being emotionally fragile, mentally fragile. Like, you can't approach certain men with their imperfections because they immediately get defensive, instead of being like, oh, you know what? You have a point. you're right. I was at fault. And if you can't do that as a human, as a man, a woman, he, she, they, her, then I think you really need to step back and take a look at yourself and see why you can't even be approached with, you know, small hiccups, mistakes. It happens. We do that. But when we correct each other, we improve that dialogue. We improve the relationship of the community. But a lot of folks don't want that. They don't ever want to hear the critique. And I have a 20-year-old family friend who is an 11 Bravo in the Army. And just the way that he jokes about hitting his, you know, soon to be wife is disgusting. As soon as it's domestic violence, everyone turns their cheek because they say, oh, not my business, not my circus, not my monkeys. But it's more like, hey, bro, your you know, your girlfriend, your wife, your fiance is capable of mistakes. She's trying her best, or I'm sorry you're going through that. There's just no humanity. It's more like, oh, fuck that bitch. Like, yeah, smack her around, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, are you really that masculine if you can't even communicate with your partner, your significant other on, hey, babe, I don't appreciate when you talk to me that way. Or, hey, babe, I wish you would be a little less aggressive when we have these discussions, you know, just, again, just it's a very fragile mindset, and I'm very tired of it because if you're not constantly working on yourself and evolving, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, then you're just stagnant. You're going to always be just an immature little 18-year-old at whatever age you are. So I think for Zachary to try to control a woman like that is like you said, Janae, just very narcissistic, very abusive. And a lot of folks don't want to call that out because either they have that in themselves or they've witnessed it in their own friends and they've said and done nothing. So I think it might also be a moment of reflection for them to be like, wow, I've seen this before and I did nothing. Am I really that brave? Am I really that patriotic? Am I really
Yes.
a man if I'm sitting back and letting these things happen? And it doesn't matter if it's man to woman or woman to man, it's still not right. And yeah, I'm just tired of the excuses. It's more of like, again, doesn't discredit his service, her service, but he fucked up, and we all need to admit that, acknowledge that, so that it doesn't happen again.
Yep. And Jess, when you talk about courage, like, this is courageous. This, sitting on this live right now, knowing that people are going to be upset about what we're saying, that's courageous. Speaking up against it, that's courageous. Sharing her photo, knowing that you might upset your veteran counterparts, that's courageous. Sitting back and being silent because you don't want to upset people because there's a large brand that is, you know, not involved, but has been affected by this, that's not courageous. Putting, you know, violence against women is not courageous. And so this is somebody who was paraded around as a badass. This is somebody who was paraded around as a tough guy, and he's a fucking coward, excuse my language, but he's a coward. He murdered a young woman, a mother. He is not courageous. He is not a badass. And so the fact that that's the kind of people that we're parading around, and that when it comes time to speak up, everybody's being quiet because they want to protect his image, that's cowardly, in my opinion. You know, it takes a lot of courage to sit right now on this live and talk about this, knowing that we're probably gonna lose support. We're probably gonna have people who are judging us because of what we're saying, but she deserves a voice.
Yeah, I also
be honest.
are just like into the performative activism and not really about it. No, if you're about it, be about it, talk about it. And that's exactly what we're all doing now. And especially because it's personal for us, because you could be doing all the right things. You know, she could have shown up and been like, maybe he's going through something, maybe I can console him, something. And he just wants to immediately take her life. Like, no, that's wrong. Like, and you know that your friend is struggling, it's not a bad idea to say, hey, do you need someone to hold on to your guns? I've been there. I've done that. There's no shame. And the VA hands out free gun locks. And there's just no excuse. There's no excuse. And for him to take his life as well is just, it's cowardly on top of everything else. And it's just, I'm tired of just nothing being done, because
in his video, he said he struggles with personal demons. He said, sometimes we make decisions we can't come back from. sometimes we make decisions we can't come back from. He was not distraught. He was not upset. He did not look like he had cried. There was no remorse in that man, and he was driving away from having just murdered a woman.
It's just to avoid accountability. It's exactly what you said. He was trying to look for more clout for the pity party, to be like, oh no, well, he was struggling, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you're really struggling, I know a lot of people who struggle and they don't want to hurt other people.
Yeah.
It should have never led to murder. And the other thing too, silence is complicit. Like, and the other thing is, like, as a brand, especially when I saw that they got asked to comment, I get it, it just happened, but as a brand, you should take a step back and look at it from that family, her family. Like, she deserves a voice, and looking at how he's being basically praised, and it's like, yeah, you were a hero at one point, but what you just did, and yeah, you served, but what you just did and then taking your own life, like, no, that's very coward. And as a brand, you have to hold them accountable too, because right now they have the ability to make a statement, and they have a way that they can unify not only the community but send shockwaves through that whole community. And so those people who are fearful of, whether it be how it's all intertwined, whether it's losing a status or losing friends or whatever you're fearful of, right now that brand has every opportunity to make a statement to literally unify the whole community and allow, as well as women, where most women are often fearful because they're not believed if there's domestic violence involved, and usually it's all swept under the rug. So them to make a statement right now, they have the ability to unify the whole community.
Yeah, and change that rhetoric for sure. And
so,
she gave years of her life to work there. Like, she's not just some girl. She's also a veteran, also put 2 years of her life into that company. Like, yes. Life matters.
Yes. And like I said, his videos stayed up this whole time. So people were able to go there and, kind of reminisce on what an amazing guy he was. And where's her photo?
Sure.
I can't even, it doesn't take much to just post her photo on their page and talk about the loss. I'm really struggling with that and not understanding why that's not happening. And somebody commented in here, and, Jess, you kind of mentioned this earlier. This was premeditated. This was not an act of rage. This was not make a decision you can't come back from. He boarded up his dog. He left the state, right? And he went there and he asked her to meet him in a parking lot where he knew exactly what he was going to do. So this was not an act of, like, impulse. It was premeditated. It was intentional. He knew what he was going to do. And then he drove to their workplace, their former workplace, and then he finished himself off. So I don't think that nobody knew what had happened for the last 12 days or 10 days. I think that people knew within their community, within their network, knew. And I'm really just a little bit hurt by the fact that they left the videos up. And I'm hurt by the fact that they still haven't said anything about this woman, about Madalyn. Like, Madalyn, say her name, put her picture up. Yeah. She is the victim here, and she deserves to be for who she is, and not the whole, we're sad for both of their families. That is, this was a murder. Her life was taken from her. She didn't have a choice in this.
I would love for her family to ask to subpoena his phone records, because someone must have known. He must have been venting to someone. And I mean, not that I want that to be the truth, but most people don't stay silent about those things. Like, there's a rage, like, just the violence towards women is at an all-time high nowadays, unfortunately. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's texting, venting to someone like, I'm going to show this, just very insane, sickening dialogue. Like, someone must have known something in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? And it's not to put the blame on them, but it's, again, like, hey, your friend is really struggling. He's going off on these tangents. You know, why couldn't you be a voice of reason? Be like, hey man, do you want to hang out? Like, do you want to go blow off some steam? Like, there's ways for you to show up for your friends who are struggling so that they don't do off the wall horrific things like this. So I think that shows the community as well different ways that we can show up for our friends so that these tragedies don't continue happening. Because yes, it's very, very unfortunate that two people are gone, but I think it's just the glossing over of the how he took someone else's life. And I think that's what is very sad for me, is like, why didn't this go out right away? Like, just as we had learned about him, why? Yeah. So I think it, and I have a feeling that it was trying to discredit her or trying to find something to make her be the bad guy, like something to deserve this. No, there are just some crazy folks out there, whether they're going through mental illness or not. I know a lot of folks who struggle and they don't want to hurt other people. So I think it's at the end of the day, like, he couldn't control her, he couldn't keep her. And if you're 41 years old and you can't control your own emotions like that, then I mean, I don't know how you're going to handle other life's difficulties. You know, you're not going to get what you want. And it's that fragile mindset that's going to keep you back.
Yeah, because everybody keeps, you know, talking about how this is a mental health thing, this is a 22 a day thing, but no, this was a narcissistic, predatory behavior. I'm sorry, let's call it like it is. This was narcissistic, predatory behavior. It was not, I'm sorry, that's what it was. And the reason I can say that is because on my TikTok, I have several people commenting saying that they had to block him and that they had to get away from him because they feared him. So there were other women who feared him. And they have commented saying, I had to get away, I feared him. So this was predatory behavior. He was able to gain clout within the veteran community. I'm going to say something I'm going to regret, but he was able to gain clout within the veteran community because he portrayed an intimidating, badass persona. He gained his clout, and then he turned and used that to be a predator on young girls. He was 41 years old. She was 28 years old. Her social media all kind of got silenced because she was living in fear. She was living in fear. It was control. The community is not full of this, but there are people who are like this. And it's like, why are we not acknowledging that? And why are we not calling them out when we see it and pushing them out?
But also, why are people defending that? And that's like, okay, that, again, I know I said it before, but it just shows that either you have done that and you don't want to get caught up in this, or you have seen it in your friends and you haven't done anything about it.
Or you don't want to say anything because you're afraid that you're going to lose your stance in the community because you know some of those people with a lot of pull are similar.
Yeah. And I think that might be the underlying message. And I think it's like an intimidation within their own, you know, brotherhood. And that's not good. If you can't truly speak your mind and have a different mindset, then that doesn't sound like a brotherhood. It sounds like a cult.
Yeah. And it goes, again, we've said it multiple times, it goes back to accountability and just even checking your circle and knowing that no matter what, you have to be able to hold each other accountable. Because, like, even for me, when I look at those cult-like situations, I'm like, as a mom, if I knew that, like, I think of my daughter and I'm like, I couldn't even imagine. And so if you see something, say something. And if you lose that friend or your following, why would you want to stay in that toxic and narcissistic circle anyways? It means they're not really your friends, and you just stay stagnant in that area and you're enabling that behavior. So you're just as complicit and in the wrong as well, because you're allowing it and you're not holding that other person accountable.
Yeah. And I understand that those falling outs are going to hurt, but trust me, if they're willing to not do anything now, they're not going to help you when you're in times of need or when you need help or anything like that. They're going to be just as cowardly as they were about that situation. So, and I feel that emotionally because, you know, I had a falling out with a friend and she just didn't stand up for me, and she was more willing to stay silent in order to be a part of that girl group. And I'm just like, you know what, you're beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, you're not, and you're a coward, and you would much rather fit in with the cool crowd than, you know, stand alone in your own thoughts and beliefs and values. So I'm not willing to put myself at risk again by continuing this friendship. And trust me, there are far better things, you know, in the future than there are right now. So I think a lot of folks have a very scarce mindset, like, oh, I'm not going to find friends better than this, et cetera, et cetera. Trust me, you will. You'll find better people, and they'll be there for you. And you'll also probably see your life improve because you're no longer associating with folks that are willing to let a lot of things slide. So if they're willing to let that slide, I can't imagine that, you know, you're going through a difficulty and they're just going to turn their cheek because they don't want to get involved. I'm like, and again, for us to be veterans, that's one thing that's great, but it's, what are you doing about it? Are you performative? Are you actually about it? Are you a true advocate? Are you wanting change? Or are you going to continue these cycles because you just want to be part of the cool crowd? You want to be an influencer. You want the follows, etc. Like, a lot of that shit does not matter. People's lives are at stake here. So I want to see more people stand up and actually, you know, give a fuck and want things to change, because we're not on here just ranting just to rant. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of folks can't rationalize with these things without it being, oh, what if it was your wife? What if it was your daughter? Like, bro, this is sisterhood, brotherhood. We were all in it. All
Like,
lives matter.
have to relate it to like a female in their family. Like, they should just care. Like, I feel a little bit hurt because there's a lot of people that I really respect and I look up to, and I'm like, I don't tell people how to use their platform. You know, you saw this morning what I posted about being authentic, stay true to your why when you get on social media. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost. And I wouldn't be surprised if that might be where Zachary got lost, right? Is that they get so caught up in this image and this persona that they create for themselves that they feel like they have to live up to it. And so when it comes time to speak out against things like this that happen, they don't want to, because they don't want to break that persona that they've lived up to. Like, I don't want to come across as negative, or I don't want to come across, you know, upsetting my community. And for me, a little bit hurt because I'm not going to tell people how to use their platform. I'm not going to tell my male counterparts who I'm grateful for and I adore. I'm not going to say, hey, you have to post about this on your page. I get it. You may not want to speak up, but can you at least acknowledge her? Can you at least, you know, just say rest in peace to your sister veteran at a minimum? That's all I'm asking. It's just elevate her, honor her. That's it. And if you don't want to go and speak out against Zachary or speak out against this organization, or even if the organization doesn't want to speak out against it, at least honor her. That's all I'm asking, is why am I not seeing her face plastered everywhere? Because she was a beautiful soul. She was a mother. She was 28 years old. She served for 4 years, and she works in the veteran community. She works in these industries. These companies employed her.
Yeah.
That's the thing I would do. If somebody from the Flawed Squad, something like this happened, I'd plaster their face all over the world.
Absolutely.
Honor them.
And I think too, you touched on a great point of, if you are an influencer, knowing that, especially in this day and age in social media and the way of the world right now, if you have a platform, step back and realize, like, how are you using that platform and what's influencing you? Because step back and look at how you're influencing others as well. Because once you do that, and like even being mindful of what you're posting and making sure you're standing on being your authentic self and values, like, that's something that you shouldn't juggle with of, oh, I can't upset this crowd, or I can't be myself and be this person, because of your one ego usually is what it comes to, in your social status. So check really out what you're even influencing, because it's like, it literally takes 2 seconds to share an image and honoring her, and even just saying her name.
That's it. And I'm so confused about why people are not doing that. I mean, I've been posting about her all day today, and I'm going through and I'm looking at all the stories, and I'm not seeing it. I mean, from, you know, a lot of the female veterans, and I feel like, and I've seen some of the comments on my post are defensive, like, not all men. I know not all men. I'm pleading with you. I know it's not you. That's why I'm asking you to speak up, because I trust you and I believe that you will. But why aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, like I know there's like there's an amazing community out there. And I know that these men have a solid voice. And you don't have to speak out against this company or speak out against this person, but at least elevate this woman and honor this woman. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that concern that, you know, if I put her face out there, then people are going to go research what happened, and then they're going to get mad at that company, and then that company's going to, you know, like, I just think there's this, the whole industry is intertwined, the whole community is intertwined, and people are afraid that they're going to upset this company, which is going to somehow impact their stance or where they fall.
And also, like, why are you worried about that? Like, I don't know. I feel like I've had to detach myself from that level of validation because it can be very shallow. It can be very self-serving. And if you're desperately seeking that type of validation, you need to ask yourself why. Are you truly a part of that community, or do you just like the praise, the attention, etc.? The veteran community is not perfect by any means. But when we have these conversations, when we talk about it, when we hold each other accountable, I mean, that's where we can improve. That's where we can get better. And I agree with the not all men. There's some really amazing men out there, and they're frustrated at that rhetoric as well. And I won't use that because that's not true. But this man did something absolutely awful. And it's just tragic that a woman so young was a victim of just his bullshit. Again, you're going through it. That's okay. But you don't need to drag someone else and take the life of someone who, again, is a mother. Like, I don't know the situation if she's, you know, with the biological dad, but that kid could be an orphan right now. We're not thinking about that. So everyone truly hurts when something like this happens. And I agree that, you know, just 9line posting at least some sentimental post, something can really help with this rhetoric that divides men and women. And I'm very exhausted at that as well. It's like, no, we're all veterans. We were all service members. Like, we all made sacrifices. We all understand our ups and downs. So one measly sentence could really help that, but I don't know. I don't understand why they haven't yet.
I'm really confused about it. I mean,
Almost like Barstool, like they get more attention or traffic if they don't acknowledge these sexist, misogynistic, horrible things. And I don't want to associate those two together, but I know that Barstool is really much like that. They really don't care about their female audience, or if they post a video about a woman, you know, they love to see her getting dragged through the mud and all that jazz. And it's funny until, you know, they start receiving death threats and all that jazz. So again, you had a female service member work for your company for 2 years. That must have counted for something. She was a piece of the puzzle. She helped with y'all's success. Mm-hmm. A memorial post would be the least that they.
You shouldn't have to beg for that or even be called out on social media for that. Like, it shouldn't take that at all.
That's why a part of me wonders if, like, you know, where I said that there were signs, a part of me wonders, and this is my curiosity, not an accusation, if this was a known issue and it was not addressed. And maybe that's why, because there's a potential, maybe legal concern about them, their side, or them even putting anything. And so a part of me wonders, because it's like they left at this clearly was bred within the company, this relationship, right? Clearly they worked together. I would assume they met there, and that's where the relationship was probably established. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, he maybe misused his
position.
Yeah, to kind of, you know, get what he wanted. And they both left around the same time from what I read. And so I'm just wondering if maybe that's what it is. But like
their part, yeah. Did you say that the other women that were commenting on your TikTok, were they employees or friends? Like, did you?
They're very different. One of them was a roommate. She knew her, but the other, like, they're making anonymous accounts, so they don't have to, because like there's that fear, and that's why somebody commented in here and said, why didn't her friends speak out? And it's like, well, because if she was afraid, I would assume that her friends are also afraid. The community can be really amazing, but it can be really tough on some stuff. It can be really tough, and if you don't have any kind of backing or support. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people can't withstand that. And like I said, I looked like her social media, it looks like it's all been kind of taken down. So I wouldn't be surprised if she, was already fearful and was already kind of going into hiding to avoid whatever backlash she might have gotten from the community.
When I was active duty, sometimes and going through certain situations and being fearful for retaliation, it honestly felt like high school, but like worse because like, we're adults, and I expected, my counterparts who were, 30, something like that, with kids and a family, all that, but they were just as worse, just as bad. And it sucks. I really don't like comparing that, but that environment, that culture can be very bully, dog eat dog type, and it's just sad, and it's honestly pathetic too.
And with that, like people who or why didn't she go to this person for help, or if there was signs, a lot of the time to step back and look at it from the female perspective of if there were red flags or different tactics used, or she might have got threats prior, like nobody knows, but depending on his status and even who he's intertwined with, that plays a huge role as well, because that adds more fear to it.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that's why I feel like that maybe there's not any posts happening or any kind of anything happening right now, because I'm would not be surprised if in the coming weeks or days it comes out that this was a known issue and that she was fearful and people knew she was fearful. And like you said, I mean, he was boarding up his dog. Like, sorry, I had to plug my phone in, so I'm having to hold it up right now because of the charger. He was boarding up his dog, and people had signs that things were happening. And if they, they left the company at the same time, her social media was taken down. Like all these things, I feel like there's got to be people that were in their immediate network that knew that he was a threat to her. And I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's why people are not speaking up. But it's like, say her name. Yeah. Say her name. And like, this really is an opportunity. These companies, they profit off of veteran mental health. Yep. So
power, like we the people were the ones that made those companies successful. So I think a lot of folks don't recognize the power in that. Just like how with celebrities, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to pay attention. You don't have to buy their products. You don't need to perpetuate, their lifestyle if you don't agree with their actions. And some people call that names or being a snowflake, whatever. It's just, I'm not going to support a horrible person like Chris Brown, who continuously beats his girlfriends. I'm not going to listen to his music. I'm not going to go to his concerts. It's that easy. But some people have this blind loyalty and thinking that they're a part of something when honestly, that company could give a fuck what happens to you. Clearly.
Wasn't she employed at the time? Somebody was asking about if she was employed at the time. From what I read, they were both employees. She was for 2 years, he was for 7, and they both left at the same time in 2020, around the same time. And then I guess he came here to work for a company, which he holds a pretty high position here. And then she was working for a company, my understanding, here in Texas. And then she was working for a company, I believe, in Georgia. And so that, he traveled there for this situation. So, but, Jess, you said something about the snowflake thing, and that lends to the whole, if you're that term in itself. And look, I'm all for the alpha male and all that, like I'm telling you, but that lends to, if you're going to pull your support from somebody because they are abusive or potentially abusive, and then you're going to get labeled as a snowflake, or you're going to get labeled as being soft for pulling your support. That's what I'm talking about. That's the perception of this badass community that is not accurate, and it's dangerous. It's actually a dangerous perception. This whole, you know, community having to rely on being a badass and being tactical and all that, like, you know, first of all, you're capitalizing off of something that people come home damaged from, you know. So like this, you know, going to war is not something to be glorified. And so companies are capitalizing off of that, and they're elevating people who come across as super badass. And if you say something about that, then you're a snowflake. All of that is dangerous to our community. All of it.
Yeah, you're being gaslit or manipulated into staying complicit and silent. And I'm sorry, I might not have external balls, but I've got some balls. I've got some courage to just stand up for myself and my beliefs. And when wrong is wrong, wrong is wrong. I'm not going to entertain that. But he, no. This premeditated, had plans for life. I mean, otherwise he wouldn't have brought a gun. If it was just talk, like, hey baby, I love you, blah blah blah. No, it was more of like, hey, I can't control you anymore. I still love you. No one can have you. Like that very dangerous, mindset. And I'm like, no, you're not this alpha man. If that's truly how you feel.
Yeah. I feel like that's why I was like, this whole perception that you have to be alpha and you can't speak out against people who are taking it too far. I feel like that's dangerous.
For me, a man or a masculine man is someone that protects, defends, and, you know, is able to stand up on his own 2 feet and have his own mindset and perception and opinions without worrying about whatever all these little cowards do or say. Someone has to be a leader. Are you going to be complicit? Are you going to be silent and let these things continue to happen? Or are you going to say something and be like, hey guys, you know, he was acting weird. You know, we should have said something. Like, why didn't we? And if you can't even approach your guy friends that way, that should be saying something. Just, why are you so unapproachable? Why do you think you're perfect? Do you think you're not doing anything wrong? Because this wasn't how you were raised to treat, you know, your friends, your counterparts, your colleagues, or, you know, your partner, your woman. Someone saying,
really, if you can't approach, like, I guess the way I look at it is like this: if you have like a male in the industry or in the community who is displaying behavior that's potentially dangerous, and you as a man don't feel safe or comfortable addressing it, imagine the women around. You know, like, imagine women in your life. So, you know, if you want to call yourself courageous and you want to call yourself a badass, then you standing up against that is protecting the women around as well. And I'm like, obviously we're courageous enough to sit here and have this conversation, but a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
And, you know, and a lot of these companies will push out strong women like us because we're going to speak up. And they keep around, you know, sometimes girls who aren't there yet and aren't comfortable yet with defending themselves. And then, you know, that behavior is able to thrive because they don't have anyone there to stick up for them because the strong women aren't brought in.
Yeah. And they make examples of those women who stay silent, be like, oh, well, she has no problem with me being misogynistic, sexist, racist, et cetera, ableist. And then we're labeled a problem because we're vocal about these things. But at what end what do we do? Do we just twiddle our thumbs and just say, oh, well, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not.
You have to call it out. You can't enable it, because otherwise, and for me, like, what I've always said is, if I'm considered and labeled controversial or going against and being that person to stand out and speak up and call it out, if it's wrong, it's wrong. I'm going to call it out. Yeah. And even in, like, if you have leadership and they try to intimidate you or use that status level, for me, it's like, if I get fired, I get fired. at least somebody in that job, in the workforce or in life, whatever it may be, saw somebody do something about it and they know that they're not alone. And you might give somebody else behind you courage to now speak out or to gain their own confidence, because everyone's going through something and you don't know what somebody's going through. So now if they see somebody take a stand, they might speak out against something that's happened to them, and what they've always seen as what's been normal. Like, hey, no, that's not okay. Even like domestic violence, like people who've grown up around domestic situations, and if that's all they saw in that environment, they might see that as normal. But then when you see and hear somebody speak out about it, it's like, whoa, that's not okay. That's not normal. And now they may have the courage to stand up and share their experience or defend somebody else.
Exactly. I like this comment right here from VicNet Positive. 69% of all relationship conflict is unsolvable. A real man and veteran knows how to fight well from battlefield to bedroom. You're a coward, bro. Like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I know we were talking about, you know, alpha, sigma, all that jazz, but just you're a human being. You should be able to communicate these things with a resolution. It's not, you're not arguing just to argue. We're not here talking just to talk. We want change. We want to see a difference. We want to inspire others to use your voice. That it can be very scary, especially active duty. In that culture, you're so immersed in it that you're afraid to speak up because of how, you know, honestly culty it can be. But once you take that uniform off at the end of the day, did you really uphold those constitutional values and morals, or were you complicit in it? And that's where it gets dangerous, because you get caught up into those shenanigans. It was like, oh, well, you know about this, bro, so now you're in the trenches with us in this like mucky, unethical, just shady bullshit. And so you're no better than, they're cheating on their wife, they're beating their wife, and you said nothing. You can't even approach them like, hey, bro, you know, you got a good one. I know you're going through some struggles, but that doesn't mean you need to be messing around with escorts or the privates at our job or something like that. So once you stand up for yourself, you're also showing everyone else like, hey, this person has their head on straight. They don't want to be involved in my shadiness, my shenanigans, and I can't lure them in with manipulation and gaslighting and this cult mindset. And so you're immediately safe from that, but it feels very isolating. But trust me, in their company, because Lord knows what they're doing.
Yeah, like you have to morph in order to stay there. And so how good does that feel? You're not even being your authentic self, because you're having to be somebody that, you know, you're having to morph into someone else in order to stay in that community or in that network.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, how lame is that? Like, again, it just feels like high school all over again. Like, we're adults, we've been graduated for a while. We're not the young, you know, lower enlisted. You are a full grown adult. And this was a 41-year-old man
who just couldn't accept rejection. That's really what it was. It's, you know, it goes even further, like go beyond like communication. It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
It's been 2 years and he just could not accept the rejection.
He couldn't let it go. And I mean,
yeah,
things hurt. Maybe you have some shoulda, coulda, woulda, some regrets, but that's a part of life. That's a part of the learning lesson. You lost a great woman because you couldn't treat her right. And now you can do better in the next one with the next relationship. Like, hey, I'm not going to be so controlling, so insecure, et cetera, so that I can have a happy ever after. You know what I mean? I'm not going to defend some fucking loser.
That's what I'm just so like, as I'm seeing the story coming out, like I'm just having like this, and Jess, you and I talked about it, is like, is the veteran community going to use him as like a front man for this whole 22 a day? You know, are we going to all ignore the fact that this was not about 22 a day? This was about somebody who was narcissistic, controlling, predatory behavior, and he took a life of a woman and then he committed his suicide. It's not the typical 22 a day kind of, you know, I got your 6 kind of thing.
And I'm really glad that you mentioned that. I feel like a lot of folks are afraid to say that, whether they're a mental health advocate or whatever, but that's what it is. He used that as a scapegoat to get the sympathy of others. And that's what's even more disgusting. It's just Say it what it is. You wanted to do something unethical, unmoral, and unjust just because you couldn't handle your freaking emotions. And now you're going to cry, oh, my mental health, my demons. Nah, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
you deserve to go to prison, but you took the easy way out and just took your own life because you didn't want to see you didn't want to be held accountable for your pathetic actions. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, too, and I think with the whole 22 a day and suicide, this situation has to be separated because he murdered her at the end of the
Yes.
day, and you can't just gloss over that. You can't, you need to call it what it is, and he murdered her at the end of the day.
yeah, another dying by suicide versus committing murder suicide are two very different things. Yeah,
Yes.
really great
Mm-hmm.
comment.
And that's what, I was seeing in all the comments on his page and all the comments that are being posted on Facebook about him. All the comments are, about I got your six and mental health. And it's like, no, this is not the same. This is completely different. And he murdered a woman, and he did that to get out of the consequences of what he did,
Well,
and like,
sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. Like, I was just going to say, imagine if it had been in the home, right? And he, killed the whole family and then killed himself. Would they be saying 22 a day?
Yeah, exactly. And I think with our male veterans, that brotherhood, it's okay. You're saying all these things. I got your six, bro. But where were you before? Were you laughing at those jokes? Were you did you not say anything? Again, like, it's everything leading up to that. It's how often are you checking in on your friends? How often are you giving them and consoling them with good, reasonable advice? And it doesn't always fall on the blame of us, the community, because some people are, you can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. So there's a lot of folks, male or female, veteran or not, that don't want to go to counseling, don't want to get medicated because of certain reasons. And I understand that. But also, you're repeating cycles. You're in this own, like, you're in your own labyrinth of suffering, and someone's trying to reach out and give you a hand out of there. And you're like, no, woe is me. I don't want to be medicated. I'm fine. No, like, he needed a friend to tell him, hey, bro, you're not okay. You haven't let the situation go. So I really hope that can at least show the community what we can improve on, what we can do better. But it also, again, doesn't fall on us. There's just some people that, I don't know, they're going to do what does, but
I think what does fall on us as a community is this promotion of this whole badass to the point of dangerous perception of what, a military brand or a military influencer, or, those people that are being elevated, they're being elevated because of how badass they are and how dangerous they're willing to be. And, maybe we should promote more other types of behaviors in our community, because there's a lot. There's a lot of people doing really awesome things that, can be promoted instead of elevating somebody like this.
Yeah, the same BS. Like, you can't walk around your house without a gun. You need to take a step back. What's going on in here and here to make you so on edge? I get it. They can. This isn't funny. This is laughing matter.
Yeah,
something's got to change, because we don't want this for our male counterparts either. Like, after you get out of the service, we want to see you doing well, having a joyful, stable, blessed life. We don't, I mean, I know there's a lot of haters in the veteran community, but when you find your group, your niche, your people, they're going to want to see you do good. And we don't want to see this we don't want this to be a new norm. You have to put oxygen for helping others.
Yeah, it's like, we don't have to bring combat home with us. You know? And that, like,
there was like a poem I read. It's like, you want to be disgruntled, you want to have the beard, you want the black bracelet, but do you really? I don't. For my nephew that's 20 years old, 11 Bravo, I don't want that for him, but I know he wants it because I feel like he thinks that'll make him more, I don't even know,
tactical, like that makes him fit more into the veteran persona.
I'm like, no, you don't want this. You don't want that.
Yeah.
You don't want to be another statistic. You'd be better.
Yeah.
I think too, one of the comments I was reading was trade day 55. It moved up too quick, but it said, hold on, it keeps moving. I wish I could have a profession to help others. I would love to be people's safe place. I am loving the discussion, ladies, and society definitely needs more of these uncomfortable conversations. For anyone listening who feels the same way as that, you do have even though you might not have the profession label, everyone has a voice, and we all have a platform, no matter how big or small. And really, it takes us having these uncomfortable conversations with one another, because either way, we all get connected to each other's community. So even using your platform and having these conversations, like, everyone can get involved.
Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. And again, just staying true to your why, staying true to your platform and to your message, and not getting roped up to the point where you have to change in order to maintain your status or maintain, your position in the community. Like, I know that if I followed along with certain personas, I'd probably have twice the following, but I chose not to, because I want to stay true to the message that I have. And I make mistakes and I fault, but I acknowledge those. And that's the kind of stuff that I think needs to be really elevated, is just being vulnerable and being honest about, hey, you know what, I'm not feeling well today. And like the other day, I made a post and I said, I'm still broken. And man, my inbox was just flooded with people. And you know what? The messages weren't, tell me what's going on. It was, I just want to tell you that, you're inspirational. Or like, they were just messages that were uplifting, that weren't probing, And so, like, the community is there for one another. I believe that. And I believe that the majority does want to support. I'm not, like, in any way trying to bash. And I think people who get defensive and who think that I'm trying to bash all men or bash whatever it is, I think that maybe there's an opportunity to take an intrinsic look at yourself when you feel that way. Because all I'm asking is, elevate this girl's voice. Madalyn, elevate her voice, honor Madalyn, because Madalyn's the one who was taken from us and it wasn't her choice. And so honor her. That's all I'm asking. And if I had seen her picture everywhere being honored by the whole veteran community, I think I might have felt a little bit better. But just seeing that, he was being honored for a week until they found out about this situation, and then nothing on her, it's awful. And even for those people who did honor him and who are like, oh my gosh, like, I had no idea. If I had known, I would not have honored him. Say something. That's your chance. That's your chance to say, you know what, I'm fallible.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. And I wish I had known, because I would have actually honored her. And that's so powerful. Such a small statement can be so powerful to those of us who just need to see that we've got that support,
Yeah.
And I think too, even in the community of sharing those who are speaking out and those who are being a voice for the voiceless, or whether it's even talking about mental health, and so others know that they're not alone, sharing those people's platforms as well within the community. So if someone does need a resource or feel that they might not be comfortable talking to you, but they see someone, because they might judge or fearful or whatever it may be, but they see someone who is on social media comfortable speaking out, they might not DM them, but they might see their post and say, okay, I feel seen. I'm being heard. Like, I'm not alone. And they might have a resource on their page that they can turn to. And just sharing those little things, you can actually help other people's mental health and save a life as well.
I agree. Like, are you like, okay, you have this platform, but are you that unapproachable that people can't come to you and talk or vent or just even bullshit, send memes, all that jazz? So Instagram especially is very saturated. So what makes you different than everyone else? Especially,
and that's part of that persona, right? People, they get this sudden, like, Insta fame or social media fame, and then they're like, oh, because of that, I have to come across as unapproachable or too busy to talk to people, or, and it's like, you have an ability to really help people and to be there for people, engage with them, respond to them.
There's much to the influence part, the selling, that they much of reality and who they are, their authenticity, etc. And we're all human at the end of the day. So when you have these passions, when you care more about the likes, the looks, and all that jazz, you can have this really amazing community. You know, I don't know. Yeah, I want to see a change in that as well. So
yeah, I went through, like I said, I went through today, and as I'm looking through all these people that I look up to, all these people that I admire, and they've seen my posts. I'm looking at my story, and I'm seeing that they saw my story. They saw that I'm begging them to speak up. They saw it, and they didn't. Couldn't even honor the girl, and that hurt. And I'll be honest, I cried. I cried about it because I was like, this really hurts me to know that these people that I look up to, these people that I admire, have seen my story. They saw me begging them to speak up. And all I want is for you to honor her. I'm not asking you to speak out against anybody. I'm asking you to honor this woman. And they're all just silent because they're afraid to upset the community. Somebody asked what I'm talking about, so I'll share it again. So we're talking about Madalyn Coulter, who was murdered by Zach Scaff. They're both employees of a very large veteran brand. They were former employees of a veteran brand. Madalyn, basically what happened was Zach, who is 41 years old, and Madalyn, who is 28 years old, were dating for some time. They worked together for about 2 years for this company. Around the same time, they were both left the company. I don't know exactly the details surrounding that. They both left the company around the same time. On July 12th, I think prior to July 12th, Zach Scaff boarded up his dog with the intent of going to see Madalyn. On July 12th, he was sending messages to Madalyn's phone asking her to meet him. They met at the DoubleTree at the Atlanta airport, or the Savannah airport, and he shot her. Then as he was driving away, he made a Instagram reel basically saying that he struggles with his personal demons. Sometimes we make mistakes we can't come back from. He did not look distraught. He was not crying. He did not look to have any type of, anything other than trying to protect his image in his eyes when he made that video. He then drove to their former job and he took his own life. I think prior to that, from what it looks like, he may have actually called the airport police and let them know that there was a dead body in the vicinity. And so they found his body, and then while they were looking, and then they found hers. They had to look for her body so they found his while they were looking for hers, basically. For about 10 days, nobody talked about her. So he was being kind of praised for, the admirable person that he is. He was a military influencer, well known amongst the veteran community, and everybody's praising him, saying, what a great guy he was and how influential he was. And they're kind of using the whole 22 a day and mental health and all of that. However, this was premeditated. He went there with the intention of taking her life, right? And then nothing is being said about her. Nothing. You can look her name up and you'll see 4 news articles from small local news stations. That's it. Nothing being said about her. Nobody's putting her face all over social media saying, rest in peace to our veteran sister. 4 years she served in the Army. Nobody's talking about her.
No.
But for a week, they were talking about him.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about. Because I feel like this is an opportunity for us to come together and say, hey, we're elevating people in the community who have predatory behaviors, and it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity for us all to come together and say, we don't stand for this. We're against it. And I'm not asking, anybody to speak out against Zachary. I'm not asking anybody to speak out against this company, but I feel like the reason people aren't even honoring this woman is because their fear of the company that has been named as both of their employer might get upset with them, and they might get pushed out of the veteran community for that. I'm not even blaming that company. I think that there's going to be news that comes out. We'll see what comes out about it, because I think it's a little interesting that they both left at the exact same time and that the company's not posting anything about her. But that's yet to be seen. All I'm saying is, why are we not honoring this woman who did not have a choice?
And didn't deserve that, you know?
She's a victim of veteran to veteran violence, a man who is twice her age, who she worked possibly for.
I mean, it reminds me of the Chris Kyle situation, but, you know, Chris Kyle was a retired Navy SEAL. So at what extent do women need to do more in service in order to get this credibility or acknowledgement? Like, I just don't understand. Like, when will enough be enough? When will we be enough to have the decency, the respect? And I'm really glad that we're having this discussion today, because we're making sure that she is honored and that we acknowledge it, you know, that two things can be accurate. Okay, great military service, blah, 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 you're a hero, you're doing good things. And you did this atrocious, tragic, awful thing, you know? Just some accountability, just some acknowledgement, please. But just know there's crickets. And that's what's so disturbing and unsettling. It's when will female veterans ever have their place in life or in death?
I posted on TikTok, and you know, it's before we got on this live, it had about 10,000 views, and everybody on there was saying, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know anything about her. And it's like, she's been gone for the same amount of time as him. And so clearly there were people in their network who knew, and like probably were afraid to speak up, but like nobody knew about her situation. Sorry, my phone.
But also thinking about it now, oh, it's like it's cutting out a little bit. But also, we're talking about it now. We're making it present. We're making it known. So please help share the word. Please help us pay our respects to her. And, you know, I'm not sure if there's going to be a GoFundMe or something, but some way that we can show support to the family that she mattered as well. Not just not praising this, whether it was, again, it doesn't have to be this gendered thing. It's just one person did this horrible thing to an unsuspecting, innocent person. Like, why wrap into your BS? You know, it makes no sense. So it's not just to a quick rhetoric to like, oh yeah, all men, we whatever. No, it's just, hey, two veterans. We just lost two veterans, and we need to talk about the details with that. So one person get all the praise and one person not even be acknowledged, because she was also a part of that company. She was a piece of the puzzle. She mattered as well. She had input. So just the blatant disregard is not going to be tolerated. So if you're just hearing about it now, you can help share the word, pay your respect, and let it be known that we missed out on an incredible woman in the community. Now her son, it has no mother. Like, where's the I'm not feeling it. I'm not seeing it. So
yep, exactly. This is not intended to bash anybody or to really bring anybody down. This is just saying like, hey, we need your guys' help. We need you guys to speak up and to honor this woman.
Yeah, agreed.
And give her a voice. I mean, I'm sure her family wants to know that she was appreciated amongst the veteran community. I would want to know that. It would crush me if I was in her mom's shoes and I saw that the man who took her life was being praised and nothing is being said about her at all. She deserves to be honored, and that's all I'm saying is we need to talk about it. And this is really an opportunity for us to discuss, what type of behaviors are being promoted in our community that are dangerous.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, thank you for even sharing, because I didn't know about it. And I follow a huge amount of the veteran community, and I didn't know about it until I saw your post. And then I went and looked. But even just the message and the captions you posted, and even you saying about, we can scream from mountaintops and still go unheard, but when y'all whisper, the community stops and listens directly.
I feel that very strongly.
Community, and it's so true. And I think too, that's where we can also use this as an opportunity to try to change that stigma and bridge it together, and everyone come together and look at how they're impacting their community and what they're doing to create change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand. I think a lot of folks are unfortunately a little vain. They're like, oh, this is Instagram. This is just my place to look hot and, you know, show off my body and show off this, that, and the other. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. Like, how can you just completely, it's so in vain. And I'm very tired of that. It can be everything. Instagram, social media can be a place where you have community, where you share cool pictures, where yes, you embrace yourself, but you can also talk about real things that are going on, real things that matter. And so
Like show depth.
I'm also really tired of, you know, and that's exactly what you do, Janae. Like, you are beautiful, you are talented, and you have, you know, a very successful career and your own business, and you're able to show all of that. You can use social media to show just multifacetedness, but a lot of folks won't. It's more of like, oh, sorry, it doesn't fit my aesthetic. And that's also something that I'm very tired about. There's a lot of other influencers, other advocates, etc., but they draw the line where when it doesn't fit their narrative or their aesthetic or whatever. And I really want to call that out too, because heaven forbid something happens to you or someone you know, and you're like, oh, well, that tragedy doesn't fit my aesthetic. And I'm like, I'm really sorry
Yeah.
about that mindset. Like, again, no humanity. I see humans, I see no humanity. So it's not to be a Debbie Downer. It's just, again, just paying our respects, talking about what is important. And we don't want to see this happen again. So it has to be discussed. And, you know, I hope that all of us after this, we take care of ourselves, and, you know, we can self-soothe and talk to our own friends, and, you know, we can all chat after this as well. But just, we got to help take care of each other. And that includes community, accountability, discussion, all of that. So
yeah, I agree. I think it's hopefully opens a conversation. You know, this wasn't intended to be divisive. Shannon asked what happened. We're talking about the murder suicide of two former employees of a large veteran company, where it didn't really come out until 2 days ago that there was actually a woman who had been murdered in this case. And so for the last week, the man, who's a male influencer, military influencer, both of them are veterans, kind of got paraded around as part of like the whole 22 a day in mental health. But this is actually a violence against women case. This is a situation of violence against women, and she was murdered, and he took his life. As you know, who was it? So I'll share the story again. Madalyn Coulter, 28 years old. She's an Army veteran. And the 28 years old, and her ex-boyfriend, or somebody that she had dated, Zach Scaff, 41 years old, who both of them worked for Nine Line for 2 years together. He worked about 7 years. She worked for about 2 years. They left around the same time in 2020. And then on July 12th, he asked her to meet him at a hotel near the airport, where he shot her. He then, on his way driving to their old employer, made a reel, where he said that he struggles with demons, and sometimes you make decisions you can't come back from, and it sucks, is what he said specifically, which is kind of like you had just taken somebody's life and you say it sucks. Didn't seem to show any remorse. And I think he called the airport police, somebody did, and while they found his body while they were looking for her body, and then they ended up finding her body. So both of them were found on the same day. However, it only came out that he had committed suicide for about a week, and it didn't come out until about 2 days ago that she had also been murdered, when she was found on the same day as him. So I'm really confused by that. And these companies kept his videos up this whole time of him portraying himself as an intimidating badass. My opinion is that this should not be paraded around as part of the whole mental health 22 a day. I do think that's an important issue that the community should be focusing on. However, I think this is a violence against women situation, and it was behavior that should not have been elevated in the community, and I would like to see it spoken out against. However, I can't tell people how to use their platform, and so I'm just here to honor the woman who was murdered. This was not her choice. And she's a veteran.
Well, I'll tell people what to do with their platform. Please help, please help us, and just share the post, honor her, and yeah, we want to see more awareness because we don't want this to happen again.
Yeah. Use your platform, and whether it's acknowledging it on this live, if it's acknowledging the post, her story, share it. It takes literally 2 seconds and does not cost anyone anything. And it shouldn't even go back to money or a status, anything like that. It is a soul, a human being. She was a mother and she was murdered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I look, like I was saying earlier, I look all over social media and I see all kinds of stuff about him, and I don't see anything about her. I've seen a couple articles. I think there was maybe 4 articles, and one of the articles, the headline was former 9-line employee and presidential candidate commits murder-suicide with a girl. So she's just called a girl, and he's given all of these titles. And so it kind of minimizes who she was as a human and how important she was to this earth, especially as an Army veteran and a mother and a daughter, and a former employee as well. And it elevates his accolades, which kind of minimizes what he did. Yeah. Because people then focus on, oh, wow, he ran for presidency. Oh, wow, you know, he worked for 9-line. So it's like everybody's looking at that instead of, oh, wow, he just murdered a 28-year-old girl. A 41-year-old man just premeditated and went and drove to meet this woman and murdered her. Yeah. That's what we should be talking about.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, ladies, for joining me and for helping, spread the message. Again, like, this is not divisive. I appreciate the conversation not being about bashing anybody or tearing people down or going in a negative route, and really just sharing our perspective and the help that we need to elevate our voices. So I'm glad that we got a chance to talk, and I appreciate you guys taking time tonight to join me. Yeah. And Jess, I'll see you in a couple days.
Yay! Yeah, but I'm really glad that you stepped up and wanted to discuss this. It needed to be discussed. So I appreciate you, Janae, and it was nice to meet you. And yeah, I'm glad that we had this talk for sure.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for this conversation and willing to have these uncomfortable conversations, no matter even the backlash that you're going to get from even you guys being involved in the veteran community. So thanks again to you both, even for using your platform. And I just want to say my condolences go out to Madalyn, her family, sending love, prayers to her family, and may God bless and cover her family in strength and healing during this difficult time.
Yeah. Yes. Amen. And I pray that, 9-line leadership also finds the courage to share and use their platform to help kind of unite the community. Yeah. The question I got was, how can I help? I shared several posts today. You can just share, Shannon, the post that I did, or you can just share her photo and honor her in whichever way you want. But the best way to help is really just to share those posts or to share her photo, however you want to, but just please help to honor her because she deserves that.
Yeah.
I would say too, going forward, others how to help and be active in your community is even holding, if you see something, say something. If you call out the BS and call out what's wrong, hold people in your circle accountable, and look at when someone comes to you, whether it's a joke and how they're talking about men or women, especially women, and the way that society and social media likes to, I would say, push the whole female agenda of you're a sex object and the exploitation of that. Mm-hmm. I would say hold your circle accountable and be mindful, as well as don't be fearful of calling out each other and being accountable, because again, even it's okay to not be okay and get help and use each other for resources. And that way it doesn't lead to suicide or situation like this, which needs to be separated, is suicide murder, and really be there for one another.
Yep. Agreed.
Very well said.
All right.
And we'll close it with that. Bye, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you to everybody who watched as well.